friends. I'm your host, Dr. Dave Layton, and thank you for joining me in our journey to hope. It is my desire through this podcast to bring you information about how to discover, sustain, or perhaps regain hope. Well, in this episode, I am joined by an incredible young lady. Her name is Chaeli Mycroft, but we know her as Chaeli. Is that correct?
Yeah, got it.
Okay. Well, again, I am beyond thrilled to have you not only as a guest, but as a new friend. All right. Well, I first learned of Chaeli through a shared Facebook group for podcasters. And when I learned some of the details about her, I knew I wanted to have her as a guest. And so I'm thrilled that she has agreed. And I'm going to let Chaeli introduce herself. But what I'd like you to do, as you're listening to this conversation, I want you to pick up on this indomitable spirit that this young lady has. And I hope I'm not embarrassing her. But she truly is a role model for someone who might be trying to discover, sustain, or regain hope. Well, hello, Chaeli.
Hey, Dave, how are you doing?
I'm doing well, my friend. It is so good to see you.
Good.
Now, you are in Queensland, New Zealand.
No,
Did I say
I'm in Cape Town, South Africa.
you're in Cape Town?
Yes.
Oh, my apologies. I'm confused on my geography.
No worries. Yeah, Cape
Okay.
Town.
I just can't keep up with you. Okay. Now, again, I gave a brief introduction, but I want you to tell our listeners a little bit about yourself. And then we're going to talk about some of the things you've done and then what you see in the future. Okay.
Yeah.
Tell us something
Yeah.
about yourself.
Okay, cool. So I'm Katie. I'm 29 now. Um, I live in Cape Town, South Africa. I have cerebral palsy and I'm a wheelchair user full time. Um, I I'm like a super active human being. I love doing like running and cycling and I did dancing for a long time. I really love climbing mountains. And I think like mountains are just beautiful. And I have to do it differently because I'm a disabled person and I've had to find ways to make the things that I want to do happen. And so we do those things. I'm also an activist, so I advocate for the rights of disabled people. We also have a nonprofit that we started 20 years ago, which is insane to me to think about that we started it 20 years ago, um, called the Katie Campaign, and we do disability rights advocacy and support. Um, and, it's really about supporting disabled people to be our full selves and living full lives um, with our disabilities and having pride in how we exist and what our disabilities bring to the party. Like it's not all negative doom and gloom. It's got some good sides as well. And so in all the things that I do, that's really what I'm promoting. Often people are like, they do these things to prove people wrong. And like, yes, that's very true. But I'm also very driven to just do the things that I want to do. Um, so we have ended up in some pretty cool places by just embracing life in that way and seeing where things go and who arrives on that journey as well.
Okay. You said some things that I think are great. I like to tell people, don't focus on what you can't do, what you cannot do. Focus on what you can do. And
Yeah.
whether it's a handicap or age or whatever the case may be, when I was recovering from cancer, well, when I was being treated for cancer, My doctor told me, he says, you'll never be the same man you were before this, physically or mentally. And I
Yeah.
thought, well, because of his great care and God's mercy, I'm alive. What can I do? And that's what I tell people. By the way, you now I have full use of my limbs, and I'm thankful for that. But you've done some incredible things despite your disability, and that's what I'm talking about. What can you do? And I hear that. I hear that coming out. I like what you said. You enjoy fitness and mountain climbing. Wow.
Yeah.
But your emphasis on living a full life, that's
Yeah.
just great. That's great. I have used the expression, the difference between a wasted life and a life wasted. A wasted life, I might not have any control, but I do have control on what I can do in my life or what I want to do. And so if I don't take advantage of that, then that's a life wasted. That's something that I can overcome. Okay. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to go into all that. I,
100%.
Okay. But yeah, we do what we can do. So you've not let your handicap slow you down. Now, you chastised me, and I'm glad you did. When we were first chatting with each other, I said, um, I used the expression differently enabled, and you kindly, tactfully, and lovingly chastised me for that. Thank you.
You're welcome.
You corrected me, and I do appreciate it. All right. So you began the campaign with your
Yeah.
siblings to raise
Yeah.
funds for motorized wheelchair. Okay, it
Yeah.
was very very successful. I've seen young folks, children, go out and they'll have I don't know, maybe they'll be selling puppy dogs or they'll have a lemonade stand or something that. And by the way, if a child is selling something, like Girl Scout cookies or whatever, I'm going to buy. I don't even need it, but I'm going to buy it because that
Yeah.
youngster, that youngster's doing something.
Yeah, you gotta support the cause, you know. It's funny
Yeah.
though, it's that we had when we just started out, it was like day one of us selling things around the neighborhood and we got to this house and it was a grumpy old man and like we rang the doorbell and we had our whole sales pitch going and we were like, hello. And like Chelsea, who was the baby of us, she was 6 years old. And we decided she was the salesperson to get all these people to think that we were cute and like give us their money for the cards and things that we were selling, and he was so grumpy, and he like didn't want to talk to us at all, and he said to us, "If I give you money, will you go away?" And we were like, yeah, like give
Sure.
us the money. Yeah. How much are you gonna give us to go away? And when we told my mom that story, she was horrified, horrified that the man had like said this to us. And but also confused because we didn't see that as a negative thing. We were like, he gave us money for no reason. Like we still got to use the things that we would have sold to that guy. So we had a really positive outlook on it. And I think that's really funny because I think when you're older, you feel that judgment more and you hold on to it more. We were like, we have things to do. Like we have a goal here. So this grumpy old man giving us like 5 grand, like cool. We'll take it and then we'll move on.
That's right.
That was a good lesson, like in our early days of working with people and trying to advocate.
Okay. If you'd have gone up to him and says, "We're raising money, would you make a contribution?" He'd probably said no. But but
Yeah, so we,
yeah,
we got in. We were fine.
yeah, that's great. And then 8 years later, you received the Peace Summit Medal for social activism, with the Nobel Peace Laureates. Now
Yeah.
that's impressive by itself. So what did you do that led to that award?
Yeah, so it was a lot about activism through the Chaeli campaign through our nonprofit. Um and it was really about like the advocacy and the support that we've given to other disabled people to embrace life and the fact that my activism is an everyday experience because um I have to advocate for myself to exist in the world the way that I want to. And so sometimes it's hard. Like it's not always easy to be a disabled person.
Mhm.
I think people like you have to show up in a certain way often to you fulfill a role. And I think it's taken me a long time to acknowledge and accept that I don't have to always be the positive disabled person. I can be really upset about what's happening in a situation and think it's not okay and not be okay with it and not just absorb that, move on. So I think it's quite a balancing act that you do as an activist when you
Mhm.
have a disability and you're trying to promote that we're able and we can do all these things, but sometimes it's hard and that's okay.
Well, you have a good mind and you have a great spirit. And so again, what do I have? What can I do? When I was first diagnosed with cancer, well, I let myself feel sorry for myself for about a minute. And then I said, wait a minute, we got
Mm.
this. We got
Yeah.
this.
We have a rule in our in our family. It's the 3 minute rule. So you
3 minutes.
are yeah, we got 3 minutes. We're allowed to like not be okay with things and have a breakdown and like freak out about it. But like 3 minutes and then you have to get it together and then you
Yeah.
have to make a plan because we have things to do. So you make space for that, but you also can't give it too much space so that
Yeah.
it like takes over the room.
That is great advice. I like that. I'm going to adopt that, please. A 3 minute rule.
Oh, yeah, you can use it whenever you like.
Let me share something with you. Years ago, I was asked to speak at a chapel ceremony at a Christian college where I had attended college, and so I got up and I said, "Listen, if you want to be a successful student at Freed Hardeman University, that was the name of the college. Again, remember this is a Christian college. I said, if you want to be successful, you need to learn how to lie, cheat, and steal. Well, it got quiet for about 5 seconds, and then the place just erupted. And then I said, now, let me explain myself before you throw me off the stage. You need to lie awake at night and look back over your day and look and see if you've met your goals. You need to cheat yourself, and in this case, they were students. So I said, you need to cheat yourself out of 30 more minutes of study time because that's what you're here for. And it's one of those proven things that if you'll take a break from your studying and then come back to it after a bit, the retention is better. So lie
Yeah,
awake at night, look over your day. Did I meet my goals? Teach yourself out of 30 more minutes of study time. And then you need to steal every good idea you can and internalize it and take possession of it. Uh,
yeah.
well, you just gave me something that I'm going to steal from you.
Perfect.
The,
Take
the,
it and go.
and yeah, that 3 minute rule, I like that. I'm going to share that when
Yeah,
I
it
work
was
with when I work with my, especially my cancer victims that are kind of struggling a little bit, the new ones especially, I'm going to say, okay, You've got 3 minutes and I'm counting.
Yeah. And the thing is, it's always when you're like feeling really bad about it. When I think it's like it's quite a shock to the system when a good friend is like letting you cry, but then they're like, okay, friend, you got 2 more minutes. And you're like, oh, okay. Let me hustle with this now.
Yeah. We
Yeah.
have a bench right outside the front door at the cancer center. And when I was finished with treatment, I would sit there while my wife went and got the car. I could barely walk at first, and I had to use a cane or a walker, and sometimes a wheelchair, by the way. So I understand what it's like being in a wheelchair. But I would sit on that bench. I called it my pity bench. But after that first day, it's like, nope. You know what helped me, and
So
I
that's
see
your
this in
bench, yeah.
you. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
What I'd like you to think about or comment about, I tell people, and I've found this in my research about hope, is that one of the best ways to begin to reclaim hope and all of that is to get out of yourself and yeah, don't dwell on yourself and all the poor me. So real quick, and I'm going to turn over to you. What I did while I'm in the hospital is I began to focus on the people that were coming into the room to take care of me. The lady that cleaned the room, the nurse, of course, the doctor, but the guy who would come in the morning and say, okay, here's the menu for the food. What would you like to eat today? And if I didn't see anything, he says, well, what would you like? We'll see what we can do. So I began to focus on them, and I said, I'm not going to sit here and be sad about this. I want them to look forward to coming to visit me. So, okay, that's my point, to get out of yourself, and you're doing such an incredible job with that.
I think sometimes I think sometimes you have to just kind of sit with yourself. And and I think too often people I know this um as a lifelong disabled person, um I think it's I'm gonna try to say this nicely. So I do therapy. I in 2020 I did was not doing well with my mental health. And so I started going to therapy, and one thing that I've really taken on board is that you have to sit with it, you have to make space for what's happening. You have to acknowledge it for yourself before you can um work with other people with it.
Sure.
And one thing that I think is has been really quite powerful for me is that um it's all right. Like, you're allowed to feel your feelings. You're allowed to have experiences that you don't appreciate all the
They're part
time.
of us.
And yeah, they make us who we are, right?
Yes.
But one thing that I think has been really interesting to sort of unpack for myself um has been that as a disabled person, as a lifelong disabled person, um, it's challenging because it's different to having something like cancer where there's like, I just have to get through this round of treatment. There's kind of like a light at the end of the tunnel idea that like it's just these hurdles, and then I'll be over it and it will be okay. And I think when you live with a lifelong disability, you don't have that same sort of, I just have to do these things and then I'll be over it and then it will be fine. It's a constant. everyday thing for the rest of your life. And that's quite a big thing to grapple with and to become okay with it. And um I'm very open that I'm like, I'm not always excited that I'm a disabled person. Like, and it took a long time my therapist worked really hard
Okay.
to get me to a space where I could say I'm not always okay with being disabled because I had worked so hard to pitch myself as this positive, like solution-oriented disabled person who is really excited about life and grateful and all these things that I didn't make space for the sadness. I didn't make space for the hard stuff
Hmm.
and for that stuff to also be valid in my
Yeah.
experience. And so that's been a really interesting journey for me to kind of sit with it and be like, you know what, I'm not super excited today and that's all right. But like it's fine. You don't have to be super positive all the time to
Yeah.
be like happy and content in your life. And I think it was Michael Fox who said because he has Parkinson's now and
Yes. Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
he's had it for like decades.
Oh,
My
yeah.
entire my entire life this man has had Parkinson's. And one thing that he said that has really stuck with me, he said, optimism is sustainable when you have gratitude. And like that's a really powerful thing to think about because there's so much going on all the time that's maybe less than ideal. But if we're grateful for the things that we do have and the things that are working for us, and if we're looking for the things that are working, I think we show up differently in the world when we do that, and it makes it easier to make space for the hard things because we are like sitting in gratitude with all of it, with all the mess as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate you sharing that. And I think that's a good insight that, yeah, every day is not wandering through the field picking sunflowers. There's days when there are challenges. Yeah.
Sometimes there are a lot of thorns.
Now, so 2012 you won an award,
Yeah.
but you didn't stop. 2013 you won another award with the World of Children Award for significant contributions to lives of other children. That
Yeah.
was great. Again, getting outside of ourselves.
Yeah.
But then you did a couple of amazing things.
Yeah.
You climbed Mount Kilimanjaro in
Yeah,
Tanzania in a
I did,
wheelchair.
I did do that. Yeah,
What were you
listen,
thinking?
I
No.
we were not. Listen, I thought, it's really funny. So I'm writing a book about it because
Good.
so many people ask me how it was, and I'm like, let me just write the book so you can go buy the book and you can learn the whole story. But I think it's so funny because we weren't talking seriously about it, like at all. And I told a friend of mine at university, I was like, hi, I'm thinking of going and climbing this mountain. And like, how cool would that be if we did
Yeah.
that? And like over a chicken mayo sandwich, and he had a family friend um who like he does that. Like he climbs mountains and in he takes people up mountains. And he
Mhm.
told him, and then suddenly we had a team of four, and I was like, what's happening? And then we were actually climbing this mountain. And I think that's amazing that sometimes you don't go into it being, I didn't go into that being thinking that I was gonna be this incredible mountain climbing human being. Like, I was panic stations for a lot of that experience.
Okay.
Like it's the one of the most incredible things that I've ever done. Like for myself, and also when people ask me like how was it, I like the genuine response is like it was amazing and also awful. And
Okay.
I would do it 1,000 times.
Wow.
I think everybody should go climb a big mountain and just experience that and to learn to appreciate like nature and like how incredible the world is and
Yes.
how powerful we are as people and like to learn the power of your mind when you have like we're climbing at like 3 in the morning and it's minus 15 degrees Celsius and I'm wearing like 9 layers of clothing and still freezing to my bones and like I it took us so long. I don't even know how long it took us to get up there, but I we have stayed in contact with some of the guides and porters that went up with us and years later we find out that like what I thought was us taking a break was actually the team leaders convincing all of the guides who were climbing with me specifically, that was like a pep talk that they were having to be like, guys, we have to just keep going. We can't tell Katie that we're taking her down this mountain. And I'm so like grateful that I didn't understand what they were saying because they were speaking in Swahili. Because at that point, if somebody had said to me, like, you know what, I think we're done, I would have been like, cool, buddy, let's go home. That's fine. And I didn't have that. Nobody said that to me.
There you
And
go.
and then we got to the top of the mountain and we were like, okay, cool. Like, look at us doing this thing. So
Don't
like
tell me I can't. That's right.
say that to me. Like I I'm very driven by people being negative, and that sounds counterproductive, but I'm a very stubborn human being. I
Can
think
see that.
I think you have to be one to achieve things sometimes. Yeah,
Yeah.
because honestly, like when you're a disabled person living in the world, like we come up against a lot. Like there are people who like I have eyes on me constantly because I exist very loudly. I occupy space loudly. I come into like the and I work really hard to connect with people. So like if I go into a shop or like a mall or something, I'm constantly like, hey, bro, like, how are you? How's your day going? Because I might need you to help me to push it up, like an elevator button or something. And so I'm very grateful that I'm an extroverted disabled person because I like talking to people.
Uh-huh. Good.
I have anxiety though, so it can be like stressful. But I appreciate that I have the personality that I have because if I didn't, I would not be doing the things that I'm
Yeah.
doing. And
Well, I'm I'm going to get a picture of Mount Kilimanjaro. I will never look at that mountain picture again without thinking of you. And
yeah, I love
I'm
that.
going to put on that picture, I'm going to put a statement that says, when you come up against a rock, climb it.
I love that. Like,
Yeah.
sometimes they're really big though. And
You
that's
you
okay.
climbed one of the biggest rocks in the world.
It was wild. I like honestly, and people like when they ask you how it was at the top, I felt so sick. I was so happy to be there, but I was not able to like represent that outwardly. I was like, awesome. We are awesome. Like we're so powerful. Look at us doing this epic thing. We just made history. But like I really need to go down now. Like I'm so excited.
Time to
But
go down.
can we take the photo, please? And like, can we go home, please? Thank you. And, like, that's a weird space to be because people think that you're not excited, but you are. You just can't show it so
Yeah.
much that like you don't have the energy to do that. And um, I like it's insane. We were awake for like 40 something hours. It was madness. I I thought that university would prepare me for that, but no. It's a whole other thing, and it's just I think everybody deserves to have a like a transformational experience
Oh,
like
yes,
that.
absolutely. Yeah. But a
It's
lot of
like,
us have trouble just climbing to the end of the street where our mailbox is. So,
yeah, but it took us 4 years to get to the point of climbing the mountain.
yeah.
And we had it all set and ready to go, and then things happened, and we had to like postpone it by a year. And we were like, okay, that's really like I was excited. Now I have to wait like another 12 months, but it worked out the way that it needed to, and we had the team that we needed, and everybody played their role, and it was a beautiful experience.
Okay. Well, let me ask you another question.
Yeah.
Again, getting out of ourselves and trying to help people. What advice would you give someone that is newly disabled?
Yeah. So I that's really interesting because I've been a disabled person my entire life.
Uh-huh.
So my only perspective is as a disabled person. Um, and I think it's a very different experience to somebody who gains a disability later in life. I don't feel like I've lost anything because I never really had that ability in the first place. I think if I was giving any advice, it would kind of be, well, okay, here's what I would say. Um, I do CrossFit and I have a coach and his mantra is, which I've like taken on board because I'm like, that is so smart. I didn't appreciate it when he said it the first time, but it had to sink in a little bit. So his mantra is work with the body that you have today. And I think that that's really helpful because I have a disability where I can learn something, I can figure out how to do it, and then 2 weeks from now, my body doesn't feel like doing it that day. And I'm like, what's going on? I know how to do this, but my body doesn't want to. And he's just like, that's fine. We're gonna work with the body that we have now. So we'll just rework what we're doing and we'll do something else. And I think a big challenge to people when they like enter the disability community is that I think there's a huge pressure to perform as able-bodied, non-disabled people do. And we don't need to. We don't need to live up to a non-disabled standard. We need to create our own standards and make what we're doing work for us. And and just have a little grace with yourself. Like if today is a really hard day and all you manage to do is like get out of bed and take a shower and eat breakfast and then you did nothing else for the rest of the day, that's fine. Like look what you did do. And like you got out of bed, good job to you. Um I I have I think there are many things that I appreciate about my disability that I think are important. So I also have depression, which is fun. Like that's
Sure.
great. And that's a journey in itself, and it can be really hard to do basic things. And one of the ways that my disability is really helpful to me is that I don't have to do those things for myself because I'm a disabled person. Somebody has to help me with that anyway. So I'm grateful that when I'm depressed and I'm having an episode or like it's really hard to do anything, I have people who can do that for me. So I don't have to convince myself to get out of bed because somebody else is getting me out of bed.
Okay.
So, so I can be depressed upright in my wheelchair. At least I'm in a new space. Sometimes you just have to get into a new space. But it's also, I think, important to allow yourself to need help and allow yourself to bring other people into your story so that they can be a part of it and they can be helpful to
Yeah.
you.
You know,
Because
I'm sorry. Go ahead, please.
well, because there's so much pressure to do stuff by yourself, but that's no fun. Like so all of my stories and all of my experiences are with other people because they have to be that way, like practically. But it makes better stories. And so for me, I think when people ask about like what's it like to be disabled, it's really hard out here, but
Sure.
it's also a good time sometimes. And like I think people often judge people. Like I have very open and honest and like hilarious friendships. So when something happens and people are like, Katie, are you playing your disability card now? I'm like, yes, I'm playing it. Like, like it was given to me. Like I'm gonna play it. And like when we go to a mall or something and my friend is like, oh my gosh, where are we gonna park? I'm like, what do you mean? What do you mean where are we gonna park? We're gonna park in the disabled space. But like obviously we're gonna do that. And they're like, oh, okay, I didn't think that I could park there. I'm like, oh, in your car. Like, so it's interesting because I think when you're open about your disability and when you invite other people into your journey, it makes it easier to be disabled because people have an opportunity to be understanding. If you
Yeah.
don't open that door for people, they don't have the opportunity to rise to the expectations that you have of them. So you have to give people the opportunity to engage positively. And if they don't, you have an opportunity to educate.
There you go.
So,
Yes, that's
so
good.
yeah, that's my 2 cents on that.
I think that's great. I think you need to share that on your podcast. I think that's
Yeah,
great. You know, I tell people my expression about that is you need to give my heart a chance to grow, to
yeah,
help
I like
somebody.
that.
Yeah.
That's nice.
Yeah.
Because
Um,
people are capable of rising. They just need to know
yeah. Oh,
how.
they
And
are. We have an acquaintance that owns a restaurant here in town. And when I was in the really hard part of being sick, he would not let us pay for meals at his restaurant. And I told him, I said, Danny, I'm okay. I can pay for my meals. And he goes,
yeah.
uh-uh. He said, somebody told me one time you need to let my heart grow. And I thought, guilty. Okay.
Yeah, that
You know,
one.
it was a challenge for me. I've always been the guy in charge, or I've been the
Yeah,
guy that other people would come to for help. And now I had to learn humility. I had to have people help me with
yeah,
basic things of life. And that was good. It was a growing experience for me. And again, people want to help.
yeah.
And it's okay to allow folks to do that. Today, by the way, I was buying groceries with my wife, and a young lady, she's short, and she wanted something on that top shelf. And she looked at me kind of sad. She says, can you reach that for me? Oh, I was thrilled to do it. I reached up and got her for you.
Yeah, I love that. I think for me, I always engage in like a humorous way. I'm like, hey, are you feeling strong today? Because I need help up a flight of stairs,
There
and
you go.
you look
Yeah.
pretty strong. And so like most of the people that are in my life now I met because I needed help with something. And I was like, hello, you look friendly. Like, do you want to help me with this button? Or like, can you pass me those bananas, please? Like, and I have to be open to people being in my space because I always have to have people in my space. It's just the reality of my disability. People are always around. I'm never by myself.
Okay.
I have help with everything essentially, and that's fine because I've lived my whole life that way. It's important for people to also realize that that's my reality. And so when I had a friend who came shopping with me once and we left and he was like, do you know how many people look at you? And I'm like, yeah, but like people know us because we do stuff and we are busy like in the community. They know who we are. And he's like, no, they're judging you.
Oh,
And like it's just interesting because I've learned to stop to not see those people, to not to not see it as judgment, but to see
yeah.
it as curiosity. And that may just be me
Okay.
thinking myself and like putting a spin on the situation. But it's helpful. So when I arrive and I'm like, oh, he's super interested in my life because I live a really interesting life. That's a very different way to show up compared to like, why is he judging me? Why are you looking at me? What do you have to look at? Like, deal with your own stuff. Like, you don't have to be aggressive for people to learn that you have life experiences that are different to them. Um, so it's an interesting journey being a disabled person and trying to navigate life. But we
Well,
figure it out.
yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, what is next on your list of accomplishments that
Oh
you've
my
been successful
goodness.
in so many things? Now you've started the podcast.
Yes, I'm so excited about that. Like I've started the podcast. It was my first, like one of the goals I had for the year, and it's out now, so it's happening, and I'm excited about it because I feel like if I can pitch my podcast for a little bit,
You sure
um,
can. I want you to.
yeah, so it's called The Tangent because I think life is all about the tangent and it's all about like the journey that you weren't expecting to take. That's where all the good stuff happens. I love that I have this opportunity to share the insider story and like all of the nuances and the complexities around living with a disability and sort of explaining things to people. Because if you make space for explaining why you feel the way that you do and the experiences that you've had, it makes it easier to communicate about the things that you need and the way that you need people to show up for you. And that's what the podcast is about. If people have a question about disability, I'm gonna answer it. Or I'm gonna be like, listen, I don't have any information on that, but I have a friend who knows about this, so let's talk to that person on the podcast. So it's just about creating an opportunity for curiosity to be okay. Because I think we're taught around disability that it's not your business. And like if you don't have one, you're not gonna understand. I don't agree with that at all. I think people are capable of being understanding and compassionate and empathetic even when they have zero experience of what your life is. We have, I feel that it's my responsibility to, as an activist, to create bridges so that people can understand. And that's really what I want my podcast to be. And so I was so excited when you reached out to me because you were like, hey, here's what we do. And it really aligned with what I want to do. And I was just really excited because like this is the first podcast now that I'm doing where I'm also a podcaster.
Yeah. Well, that's
Like,
what we do.
yes,
It is a sharing community. It's a good way.
yeah. And I
Yeah.
love that. It's been so welcoming and so helpful. Like I work on the idea that like I really don't know what I'm doing a lot of the time. And that's fine. We're figuring it out together, but there's so many people that if you ask, they are very willing to help you and give you support.
Yeah.
And I think that's really an incredible thing to be a part of and to
I have
receive.
I have a badge that I wear on my when I work at the cancer center. I wear it on my jacket, my smock, and it
Yeah.
says "No one walks alone."
Yeah. Isn't that
When
like a football reference?
a what?
Like a football reference?
It it was a song in Rogers and Hammerstein movie years ago, and it was actually said to me the first day I went in for treatment when I could not even stand to get up on the scales to be weighed. I had to have the nurses hold me steady. And so I'm sitting in my chair waiting to go get treatment, and this short elderly lady comes in. Her name was Jane. And she says, Mr. Dave, I'm going to take you around to your nurse, Brentley, which, by the way, I work with Brentley now at the Cancer Center. She's so wonderful. But so I'm kind of stand up on my walker, and I'm over 6 foot, And
Yeah.
I'm leaning forward like an old man, and I'm barely able to shuffle. And she's got her arm around me, holding on to me, and she's half my size. And I said, Jane, you're making me feel like I'm your only patient. And she said, well, to me, you are. And
Love
no
that.
one walks alone. Oh, that that got me. In fact,
Yeah,
I get
you
a
tell
little bit
us a little
emotional.
puddle. Tell us a little puddle on the floor. No,
Yeah.
I have a big issue. I'm working on it. I have a big it's a big challenge for me to like I don't do well with solidarity. It's really hard for me because I don't know why. But I think in my life it's been I've done a lot of fighting, and like a lot of combating of negativity and people not seeing my value and people not appreciating what I bring to the table and like justifying why I'm in places and proving that I have things to say and a lot of that. And when people appreciate your value and your effort and yeah, I do not do well with like standing ovations and things. I'm like, you need to sit down. What are you doing? But I remember I had this huge I had a huge issue with when I had my graduation for my honors degree. Because I I I missed like it was a whole thing. I missed the undergrad one. It was a whole thing. But so I go to this graduation. I've been stressing about it for weeks and there was no reason to there was no reason to stress because everything was organized. But
Uh-huh.
I was so stressed about like people like seeing me and watching me and like me going to this thing and being like, oh, I did this cool thing. And when when it was my turn, when they read my name, I think we as disabled people are often encouraged to be quiet and to be small and to not take up too much time and like make sure that you are as efficient as possible and like not too much trouble. And we got to this graduation and they had this elevator system to get up onto the stage and it took decades to to move like the slowest thing you've ever seen and I was stressing about being the center of attention for that amount of time and bringing that level of attention to the fact that I was disabled because I've been like working so hard to meet all of these non-disabled standards and showing that I can achieve things in able-bodied spaces. And then I get to this event and I'm going up the lift and I'm turning 95 before this thing gets up to the stage. And I'm so obsessed. And I turn. And like the whole audience is standing and applauding. And I was like, what is happening right now? And it was led by like my year and my class, which was a super powerful moment in my sort of understanding of myself because it was like I know that I worked hard and I know that going to university as a disabled person when there are like 12 of us in the whole university, like that's really hard. And there's so many hard things that we don't talk about.
Yeah.
And that just felt like a moment where everybody recognized that, like recognized how hard it is to do what we do. And I was a complete mess. I was not okay. I was crying for hours after that. And like it was the best. I was so stressed about falling off of the stage and like riding over the head of the university. I had so many things that I was stressing about, but it was so beautiful to be to have that like recognition and
Mhm.
just appreciation
Yeah.
for for the struggle, and like just sitting in it a little bit and being like, yeah, it is hard, and like go me actually, like we need to give ourselves high fives more often
Yeah.
because that I think we're taught to just keep going and going and going, but we actually need to be like, you know what, I did a good job today, and I was awesome, and I'm great at this, and because too often we don't do that, and then we miss those opportunities to celebrate ourselves and what we bring to the table, and
Yeah.
to just claim our value a little bit more.
Well, and we need to recognize moments where we have been successful and reward ourselves. Not in a braggadocious way, but you did
Like,
something.
yeah, and like that's awesome. And
Yeah.
there's, there's not enough of that, I feel.
Okay.
Yeah.
Kaylee, you've been a wonderful guest. I have really,
Yay.
you have not, you have not disappointed me at all. I knew
Wonderful.
you were a dynamic person, and you have made my day. Thank you.
Well, thank you for reaching out and wanting me on your podcast. I'm really grateful.
Listen, I reserve the right to contact you in the future to have you back as a guest. I'm going to be following your podcast. I did go to it this morning and clicked on follow. I want
Yay,
to see
thank
what you're
you.
doing.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, I want to see what you're doing. Okay. Well, I'm going to wrap up, my friend, if that's okay.
Sounds good.
Okay. Well, friends, thank you for joining Kaylee and I as together we journey to hope. I truly hope that we have encouraged you to discover, sustain, or regain hope through this effort. I invite you to contact me if you have any questions or comments, or if you wish to share with me something you've experienced in your journey to hope. My email is ourjourneytohope@gmail.com. That's our journey and the number 2, hope@gmail.com. And please share this podcast with someone whose hope is being challenged. I look forward to sharing more with you soon. Again, I'm Dr. Dave Layton, and thank you for listening. And until our next episode, remember, we give all glory to God our Father.